superstars. Let's work together on Week 8, Lesson 2. Here's our objective for today. Today we will make generalizations about the sums of even and odd numbers by investigating patterns of the addends in order to develop flexible computation strategies. So what are we going to do today? It says we are making generalizations. The word generalization means that we are coming up with broad statements or rules based on our observations and experiences. The objective says that we will be making those rules about the sums. I know that that is a total when we add. And we will be thinking about even and odd numbers that we learned about earlier this week. I wonder how we will be making these generalizations. The objective says we will be investigating, which means to look closely at patterns of the addends. So it sounds like we will be looking for what we notice happening when we are adding together different numbers. The reason we are doing this today is so that we develop flexible computation strategies, which really means that we can use different ways of thinking to help us solve addition problems. Let's investigate to learn about adding two even numbers. Remember that even numbers are numbers that can make two equal teams. Some of the even numbers are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. If today's number is 16, which is even, can we make the number 16 by adding two even numbers together? Let's try it. If we start with 10, what would we need to add to get a sum of 16? Correct. We would need to add 6, which is an even number, to get the sum of 16. So adding two even numbers made an even sum of 16. Let's try one more time. If we start with 8, what would we have to add to get a sum of 16? You got it. We would need to add 8 to get a sum of 16. So adding two even numbers made an even sum of 16. Let's investigate to learn about adding two odd numbers. Remember that odd numbers are numbers that cannot make two equal teams. Some of the odd numbers are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. If today's number is still 16, which is even, can we make the number 16 by adding two odd numbers together? What do you think? Let's try it. If we start with 9, what would we need to add to make 16? Great, we would need to add 7, and we would get a sum of 16. So adding two odd numbers together made an even sum of 16. Let's try one more. If we start with 11 this time, what would we need to add to make a sum of 16? You got it. We would need to add 5 to get the sum of 16. So adding two odd numbers made an even sum of 16. Let's investigate to learn about adding even and odd numbers together. If today's number is still 16, which is even, can we make that number 16 by adding one even and one odd number together? What do you think? Yeah, let's try it. If we start with 6, what number would we need to add to equal 16? You're right. We would need to add 10, which is not an odd number. So we could not add an even number plus an odd number to get the sum of 16. Let's try one more just to make sure. If we start with 12, what number would we need to add to equal 16? Right again, we would need to add 4, which is not an odd number. So we cannot add an even number and an odd number to get the sum of 16. So when we add together an even and an odd number, we do not get an even sum. Let's investigate a bit more. What if we try with a different number that is odd? Let's try 19. Can we make the number 19 by adding two even numbers or two odd numbers together? Let's try it. Let's try adding the two even numbers first. If we start with 10, what number would we need to add to equal 19? Yeah, we would need to add 9, which is not an even number. So you cannot add two even numbers to get a sum of 19. Let's try adding two odd numbers. Let's start with the number 11. 11 plus what equals 19? Right, we would need to add 8, which is not an odd number. So we could not add two odd numbers to equal the sum of 19. So when we add together two even or two odd numbers, we do not get an odd sum. Let's investigate a bit more. If we continue to investigate with the number 19, can we make the number 19 by adding an odd and an even number together? Let's try it. If we start with 12, what number would we need to equal 19? We would need 7. An even plus an odd number equaled 19. One more. If we start with an odd number this time, 13, what number would we need to get a sum of 19? Correct. We would need 6, which is even, so an odd number plus an even number equaled 19, which is odd. So when we add together an even and an odd number, we do get an odd sum. So now, based on our investigations together today, we can make some generalizations about the sums of even and odd numbers. When you add an even number plus an even number, the sum will be even. When you add an odd number plus an odd number, the sum will be even. When you add an even number plus an odd number, the sum will be odd. When you add an odd number plus an even number, the sum will be odd. Here's a way that we can see those generalizations in action. Let's look at an example of each of the rules we have identified. If we add 4, an even number, plus 4, another even number, we will get an even sum. You can see that if we are thinking about having partners, each one of the counters has a partner. There are no leftover counters, so the sum is even. 4 plus 4 equals 8. If we add 5, an odd number, plus 5, another odd number, we will get an even sum. Again, if we think about having partners, each one of the counters has a partner. There are no leftover counters, so the sum is even. 5 plus 5 equals 10. If we add 6, an even number, plus 3, an odd number, we will get an odd sum. This time, if we think about having partners, not all of the counters will have a partner. There would be one counter without a partner, so the sum is odd. 6 plus 3 equals 9. If we add 7, an odd number, plus 2, an even number, we will get an odd sum. So you can see that there is a counter that does not have a partner, so the sum is odd. 7 plus 2 equals 9. Now it's your turn to try it. In your packet, you should complete the Can You Make activity to practice adding even and odd numbers together and identifying patterns to make generalizations. Once you feel confident, complete the What Happens When assessment. Remember to keep your work in a safe place so you can share it with your teacher. There are also a few other activities you can work on in your packet: adding even and odd numbers, and even or odd. Remember to be awesome today, second graders. You're off to a great start.